Welcome from one of the last countries who are stupid enough to engage in communism. Laos in Southeast Asia. One of the countries with the lowest freedom of speech in the world when it comes to international indices, and also in general the human rights situation, the freedom for people is very questionable and problematic. So as you can see behind me, it's a total shithole, this country anyway. But I want to talk to you about something today that I did when I came here that some people might consider a bit crazy, but I actually confronted the communist system of Laos before I even came to this country in the first place. What did I do? When I obtained the visa in Hanoi in Vietnam, I went to the Laos embassy there. That will be in a separate video, by the way, that I did about Vietnam. I told the guy in the embassy that I have some content where I talk critical about communism, where I criticize the human rights situation in Laos, which I don't really do, right? Anyway, I mean, I observe it, but I don't really criticize it because I don't even give a fuck what they do here, because I'm not gonna stay in Laos anyway. So why should I care about the political situation here? But I still told them that I have content about the state system, that I see it critical, and the guy looked at me totally shocked. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to make of this whole thing, which is kind of funny because you would, like, I talked to ChatGPT about the situation, and ChatGPT told me to absolutely not say anything about politics in Laos, and it's going to be really dangerous, and they're gonna deport me and give me a visa ban and all of that stuff. But none of it happened. So the confrontation with this tyrannical system in this case didn't have any consequences for me, which I honestly found to be quite funny. So you have the CNDCs and people warn you about specific things, but if you confront them in reality, then nobody really gives a fuck. But the political situations in those countries is why I think that Asia, personally, I think it's overrated. You don't have those individual values of freedom, of responsibility towards people, about human rights. It's simply not here. People will glorify Southeast Asia in a totally absurd manner. They will act like it's everything so cool and like so peaceful. It's like, no, it's actually not so peaceful in a lot of ways. It's highly problematic in some human rights way. So especially when it comes to freedom of speech. And those things are just totally not looked at. But let's get some drinks now. Zero sugar. Okay, we got our drink now. Now I need to go to the optic and get some contact lenses because currently I'm seeing almost nothing. And it's been like this for a while because I wanted to save money. Because of my radical confrontations with authority that I do not respect, I got fired nearly everywhere in the recent months. So I had several teaching contracts where I was giving chemistry tutoring. I got fired pretty much everywhere because I talked with my students openly about sexuality. So I said to a 17-year-old student of mine that I had a sexual thought about her, and then I got my contract deleted, and I just had a lot of those experiences. I think honestly that's totally ridiculous because in the West you can indoctrinate children with LGBTQ propaganda, but if you tell them the truth about heterosexual sexuality, which means that men have sexual thoughts and feelings about women also when they're 17, I did not say you should act on that, but that's just the reality that you live in. That's forbidden. So I have a total like inversion of morals. There's no more truth in the Western world. And actually it made me question a lot of the enlightenment ways of thinking that I had about morality, because I thought, okay, humans are rational, like we all argue morally based on logic. But if you see how the Western world developed in the last years, I don't see that really taking place. Like, people are super irrational now, and there is no more logical consensus in a lot of the moral questions anymore, and everybody just jumps on that train. So that's funny to be considering also when you like criticize things in Laos, but still, yeah, you know, you can see the communist flags everywhere. They're like hanging around on a lot of buildings. And it just shows you who is in power here. Yeah, the fucking infrastructure in Laos is simply ridiculous. You oftentimes have to walk on the streets, and you always never have any stable way and just walking straight. It's such a shithole country. I fucking hate Vientiane, the city, to be honest. So yeah, I had an interesting conversation with a crazy guy from a hostel earlier, and he said that Asian people are not thinking like Europeans in terms of freedom, that they just are made to be, that they're just more obedient in general. It could be from the fact that in Buddhism, they think if you have high social status, that that's a product of karma, right? That you must have done something good in order to deserve that. But obviously that's not true, as we all know. And honestly, I ask myself why all those enlightenment movements were in Europe. Like, those were Western philosophers, and you don't have that in that manner in Asian countries, and you don't have the same kind of freedoms that you would have in European countries. And also reflecting on the fact that we as like Europeans were told for so long that we're the evil of the world, that we were some of the bad guys who exploited everybody and la la la. It's like, if that's the case, why does everybody want to go live in Europe? Nobody want to go live in Laos, right? Nobody wants to come here. Even the people who are radical left in Germany would never go and live in Laos. They would never do that. So back to the question. Why the hell would I confront a country like Laos about their communist system? Isn't that totally useless, totally crazy? I have made a commitment to myself to face my fears. And I have reached at the darkest fears now, the ones that are scaring me the most. In a state like Laos, when you cannot fully trust the government anymore, and you still take that leap of faith into telling them the truth, that's when fears really start to hit in, because you were exposing yourself fully, vulnerably into their power. I did that in Vietnam, which is also a communist dictatorship, and they could just put me in Vietnam in prison already for criticizing communism. And I still did that because I thought, that's the right thing to do. Let the chips fall where they may be, and I will still do it. So yeah, I see this even nowadays as a borderline religious experience, right? So the funny thing is, with time, the more I thought about morality, the more I thought about conscious engagement in morality, the less rational it seemed to appear to me. So if you read Dostoevsky, for example, and you read about all the darkness that he engages in his spirit, in his mind, humans can engage in such darkness that is so way beyond even the cruelty of animals, that I just cannot explain this darkness rationally. It's impossible. And the voluntary confrontation with tyrannical systems is pretty much what Jesus Christ did, right? Jesus from Nazareth, what did he do? He confronted the tyranny of the religious leaders, the Pharisees. He confronted the corrupt Rome. That's why they killed him. So, in this ultimate expression of morality that we had in the West for a long time, that's exactly the story behind it, essentially. And with time, I needed to learn to put faith into something higher anyway. It's like, okay, I'm confronting this dictatorship now, and I'm just going to put my faith into that it somehow works out. Okay, so I had so many experiences like this now that there were situations when I should have been dead and I came back. And that just happened again and again and again and again. And I cannot explain that rationally anymore. It's simply impossible for me. So that's why it actually brought me back to religion. And I was like, okay, if there's something higher that's got my back, I can confront this tyranny of Laos and it will be fine. And that's exactly what happened. And I did the same in Vietnam. You know, I actually went in Vietnam, I went to the police and I told them, look, I'm talking bad about the Communist Party. I called them restrictive and I criticized communism. And in Vietnam, they put people every week in prison for this, you know, journalists, bloggers, all of that. And I got out of it without any issues. And I need to explain this to myself. And it's hard for me to go around religion at this point. But I wouldn't say that I'm like an institutional Christian, like the Christians that you see going to church. I have more like an individual approach to it and an individual faith in it. But yeah, I'm reading the Bible now. I'm looking at this like series, The Chosen, and it's pretty wild. Like there's even empirical evidence for the fact that Jesus existed. So actually, every historians agree on the fact that Jesus existed. But I don't want to get too much into that. So I confronted those totalitarian systems here in Laos and Vietnam, and somehow I got out of it, despite doing the very thing that everybody tells you to do not. Everybody tells you to shut up, do not say something, not engage in that. I did it anyway, and it was fine. By the way, if I look wet, it's not because I'm sweating a lot. It's just because I put coconut oil again on to protect me a bit against the sun. I've been living indoors for a couple of days now, avoiding the sun, avoiding humanity. I hated all of them. And yeah. Anyways, guys, I also have a video about Vietnam where I'm actually going inside the embassy of Laos. I couldn't film in there. Of course, that would have been too crazy. I didn't want to push it like too much. But essentially, I went into the Laos embassy. I got my visa and I told them that I'm critical about Laos and communism, and I gave me my visa anyway. This video will also be out soon. And yeah, subscribe to the channel for more content. I'm back at the hostel now. And the crazy thing is that even the hostel has a communist flag on top of it. Thanks for watching.